My name is Robert Brant, and I'm a commander in the Navy, retired. I showed up in Cabo and reported in. And my crew was also there. They were over in the enlisted barracks, and they went, so we reported in. And the first thing that happened is they took my crew away from me because they needed replacements. They'd had firefights, stuff like that. Even though we trained together as a unit, etc., they needed individual bodies, and they didn't have them. They needed a gunner, they needed an engineman, so they just took my crew away. And said, you're just going to cool your heels here for a little bit because we got to patch up what we got here. Okay, so I did several indoctrination learning experiences on the boats there, because the boats, the ones in Coronado we had were Mark IIIs, these were Mark IIs, and, you know, and orientation runs and all that type stuff. And sure enough, about 2.5 weeks, one of the boats got shot up real bad, and the ONC got medevac to Japan. So they said, you got a boat now. You know, you got a boat, and you get his crew. Unfortunately, nobody in his crew was killed or hurt. So I inherited that boat and that crew, which was really a blessing in disguise because they'd been there since about March. Okay, and I'd gotten there in June, so they'd had a little experience in their travels, etc. So they saved me a lot of grief, and they knew a lot that I didn't know. And so in a way, that was really a blessing, because if I would have had my original crew, we would have all been in the, you know, pretty much equal in the same boat. So what they were doing there is they were patrolling some areas around Vung Tau there in the ocean, or in the sea. And then they were sending 4 boats down to the LST, which was running up and down the coast of South Vietnam below Vung Tau all the way down to the Kamau Peninsula. Had 4 patrol zones down there. They sent 4 boats and 8 crews. Okay, and of course one guy, it was his boat, he signed for the boat. Okay, and then the other guy was like the replacement team. And what it allowed them to do is they'd send the 4 boats out each day. They'd go at a different time. The LST would come down the coast, pick up the boat, you'd rearm, refuel, they'd come aboard, the other crew would go aboard, and that allowed those 4 boats to run 24 hours a day for 30 days. Boats went around the clock. You just changed the crews out. So you had 4 crews on the LST at one time and 4 out in their respective, and then they'd rotate the patrol areas. And you know, I was basically off the coast to prevent infiltration of weapons and that type stuff. Check the people in the boats from smuggling anything from weapons to rice, and, you know, keeping an eye on everything. We were off the coast, probably patrol. It had a big box. Further out was the Coast Guard, you know, and like. So I'd been there. I was the second crew. It was really Ross Toski's boat, you know, but and I inherited this crew, and we were out. And this is my first time to the LST. Okay. And so we're out and we're patrolling in the morning, and we're kind of driving along the coast. This is my first experience. And we're at GQ, we're on, we got our flak panties on. I mean, it's, you know, serious stuff. And we're watching the jungle and the river mouths and, you know, everything, and I'm sitting there with the binocs. And then it was tiring, but it gave us something to do. And then we rotate. So the guy, you know, the guy driving, my bosun, who's sitting here, I said, okay, boats, you know, I'm going to drive for a while. Now you go back by the aftergun, you know, and we'd rotate everybody around because, you know, you do that all day long. And we're driving along, probably at about 8, 9 knots, just going down the coast, just not looking to sea. We're just looking inland at the rivers and all this type of stuff. And we're driving along, and all of a sudden I see these little white lips in the water. And I said, I thought it was kind of like some kind of small fish, you know. And then I hear my gunner, whose feet are behind my head, and he's up there in the tub. He says, "They're shooting at us," you know. And I looked, and then I looked more to the right, and you could see colors coming from the muzzle blasts. Okay. And so I was driving, and, you know, it was just a reaction. I didn't think about this. Normally, people said, what did you do? Well, normally you'd say, well, they're shooting at me. That's seaward. They're there. I take a left, I go that way. You know, I mean, why to this day, I don't know. I took that wheel, turned it to the right, and I drove straight at it. Drove right towards the beach, and Fred's up there, and he's just letting go with the 50s. You know, and all Fred says, all I heard was, you son of a bitches. You know, why? I don't know. Headed in, and I'm a new guy down there. I'm one of the new guys down there. We went in, and then I swung around, because I was getting pretty close to the beach. And as we swung around, my engineman who was aft, he's the after loader back there, next to the 50, and he's there if they're going to use the mortar. He got stitched with a machine gun, and he got one in the right bicep, right here, and right there. And he was bleeding like a stuck pig. Well, I cleared the area, we called the LST, and we said, we're coming out. And we got out, and they, you know, pulled alongside, came down. We had tourniquets on his arms to stop the bleeding, and got out there. The corpsman came down, they called in a medevac, and my engineman was cocktail. He got medevaced, and he went to Japan. We never saw him again, you know. And that was my first firefight, you know. And everybody said, why did you turn? I don't know why I turned towards him. The simplest way is to leave, but I didn't. Yeah, okay. And I'm a new guy around. So the rest of the cruise down there was not uneventful. And then we went back for maintenance, came back again, and then I had a different one. I had a home boat then. I wasn't sharing anymore. We were down there patrolling the same 4 areas, and old Hoffman told us to be aggressive. You know, that's your job description, you know, keep alert. So we went down, and I was in the bottom area, down by the Don Keogh River, which is the one on the bottom of the peninsula. And we went to GQ, and we went up the river. Okay, Hoffman said, you know, be aggressive, so we went to look. And we went up probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles, okay, uneventful. And we're driving along, and I'm sitting in the door frame on the left. Everybody's at their station. I look out, and there's a sand panel along the left-hand bank, painted blue. Most beautiful blue I ever saw, just like it was brand new. It had a long shaft, and it was just stuffed full of cases of munitions and weapons. Okay, and I didn't see it right away. I kind of caught it out of the corner of my eye, but we were moving along. We weren't putting. We were moving there. I turned around and looked at it, and just as I was going to say, hey, boats, you know, bring it about here, all hell broke loose. And it was an ambush is what it was, and they had that out, I assume, figuring that we would stop, go over to search what was there, or confiscate it, or whatever it is, and they had it all staked out. So once we went over to stop, and they had you stop, they were here, and they were also over here. They weren't across from each other, not dumb enough to shoot into each other. And everything just cut loose. Just cut loose. There was just fire everywhere. So we went up the river about another 100 yards, did a U-turn, and how we stayed on one side, I don't know. And we came out of there full bore with everything going. And as we cleared that ambush, my radarman, who was back at the after weapons station, Pooch, took a slug in this side, stayed in internally. He went into shock, you know, and we covered him with a blanket and gave him artificial resuscitation. Cleared the river, and then it took us about probably an hour and a half to get out to the LST, because they had to change course because we were further south and they were working their way north. And when we got there, Corpsman came down, hit him with a syringe of a stimulant, and just looked at us and said, he's not with us. We lost Pooch. So I'd been there first early September, got my engineman shot up, and now I lost my radarman, you know. So it was a hard cruise, you know. And that was the indoctrination. And then I continued to do patrols, and then the division commander and I didn't really see eye to eye on things, you know, because I get in trouble for saying it, but his name was Daniel Knight, Academy graduate, And he was in charge of the catload division. You never saw him because he was always hobnobbing with the, I'll get in trouble for saying this too, but hobnobbing with the Air Force people at the air base and telling them how important he was and what his boats were doing. He was never around. The XO really ran the place and ran it well. Okay, yeah. But, yeah, Knight took a dislike to me. So anyway, you know, so he and I had a few discussions about things. He didn't like me taking a rifle to the barracks. You know, that's a Navy gun, it'll stay on your boat, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I said, you know, so I went and put it back, and then I went and bought my own AK-47. You can't have that. I said, this isn't the Navy's, this is mine. I sleep real well with this alongside my bunk. You know, Anyway, then we went down and did more patrols, and we come back, 4 boats, 2 crews on each boat. We're coming back in, it's a Friday afternoon, we've been down there for our month or whatever it is. Pull into the pier, and here's the division commander, Daniel P. Knight, whatever it was. And his claim to fame was, at the academy, he opened holes for Joe Bellino. And he did. He was built like a cement block, you know. And he's standing on the pier. You never saw him during the daylight. Here's the 4. He wasn't there, he was there to welcome the 4 boats back, but it wasn't good. You could just tell. You know. So all 4 ONCs are kind of hanging on the side of their boat as they're bringing it in and going, what the hell is he doing here? And where is he going to visit? You know. Guess whose boat he comes to? Mine. Okay. Brant, he says, I've got a message here from Sepia. That's the intelligence weenies on the hill in Vung Tau. These are my terminology. And they believe that on such and such a day, your boat sent forth an illegal radio transmission. Okay. And they want this stopped. Did you send forth an illegal radio transmission? No, sir, I didn't. Well, I believe you did. And until you admit that you did it, you and your crew are restricted to this base for the rest of the war. You can go down there and patrol, but you'll never leave the gates of this base again. And he was the kind of guy that was serious enough to do that, you know. And all the other ONCs are going, and then they ask what happened. So he leaves. And about 10 minutes later, one of my bosuns comes up and said, well, my nickname was Friar Tuck. They'd call me Tuck on the boat. You know. Tuck, that was me. I said, I know it was you. He got up one morning and he just said, you know, hello, Vietnam, 50 days. That's all he said, you know, and it was good for morale. It made him happy. You know, it didn't hurt anything. No, you know. He said, should I go up and apologize? I said, absolutely not. You didn't do anything wrong. You're just a normal person, you know. You're just, well, what are we going to do? I said, we'll just never go ashore. Screw them. We'll just never go ashore. Okay. Okay. We'll just never go ashore. We'll just wait him out. He'll eventually get transferred. He's not going to get to us. Okay. So Wright goes, oh, okay. And the next day or so, they asked for volunteers to go to Antoy because they were getting shut up pretty bad down